Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Bitcoin in Depth. I'm your host, Keren Margolis, and I'm here with our illustrious CEO, Omar Sabek, here at Zasco Digital Assets. And today's episode, we're getting more in depth on what is the blockchain. Omar,
Big topic.
It is a big topic. It's big, but also the blockchain's kind of what it sounds like. But let's get a little bit more in depth. If you missed the bite-sized video, please go watch it now. You're going to love it. So we already know about the use of the blockchain in a Bitcoin context. We know that it's a transaction ledger. We know that it's decentralized. We know why we need it to be that way. But the question is, does blockchain technology have use outside of a Bitcoin context or even outside of a cryptocurrency and digital asset context? Like I've heard people say blockchain, not Bitcoin, which is so freaking rude.
So annoying.
But why?
You know, if you think about what a blockchain, the problem that the blockchain solves is that it enables individuals to come together and transact without having trust. So any application that requires decentralized trust, because you can't have a central authority. If you really think about it, you can't have a centralized authority, right, that is untrusted. What's the point?
Right.
Right? So if you think about every centralized authority, there's a level of trust there, and trust is acquired over time. We have trust in banks. We don't even know why we're born and raised trusting banks because, for all of our lives, banks have, for the most part, done the right thing when it comes to securing our, money and checking and basic services, right? Checking and savings. They never lost that, they never lose the money. They're FDIC insured.
Right.
All around trust. But if you need decentralization because these banks are too powerful, and you realize that these central bankers are, they have their own monetary policy that doesn't necessarily align to what we want, then you need trust in a decentralized way. Right. You don't want to recreate a centralized system. You want to create a system where trust is distributed across the participants.
And so it's not just blockchain technology that you need. You actually need it for Bitcoin.
Yeah, so Bitcoin is a perfect example of a system that requires decentralized trust, and that's where the blockchain is really valuable. Other systems, maybe voting, right? We're moving into an era where, when I was growing up, we trusted voting, and with what's going on in America today, there's all sorts of politics involved, and very entrenched opposing viewpoints, and which is eventually going to lead its way into trust if it hasn't already.
So how could theoretically blockchain technology be applied to voting? Every
voter gets a key and uses that key to place their vote. Very simple. And how it's actually going to work and all the details are going to be sorted out over time. But I could see us in a world where we will all have a key, and that key will be opened up on a Tuesday. Maybe it will change. The dates will change. Maybe it's going to be easier. Maybe it'll be arranged. We'll see what happens. But one key, one vote.
Yeah.
That can absolutely happen at the blockchain.
So is there some validity to blockchain, not Bitcoin?
So it's funny because there is validity where decentralized trust is an absolute requirement. I'll tell a little story. I met with a person that was running a group at a major American company that's a very long and storied company.
Okay, that shall
remain
nameless.
3 letters.
Okay.
You can probably guess what it is. Been around since probably the 40s.
Okay.
Right? They used to be in the business of mainframe computers. Huge company. And they were selling blockchain, right? We're selling blockchain, everybody. And he was one of those, blockchain, not Bitcoin type of people. And I asked him, I said, can you give me an example of a use case where you're actually implementing the blockchain? He said, we don't actually have any production systems, but we're talking to insurance companies. These insurance companies want to be able to share claim data with each other without revealing all the data.
Okay.
And he's going into all the, dynamics of it. And, we want to be able to share just the, the first name, the last name, but not the social security number. Just the first name, last name, policy number, and some other kind of superficial information.
And do you need blockchain for that?
And that was the $1 million question. I said, do you need blockchain? Why can't you just do that with APIs like you're doing it today? What is why are you going to create this incredible, the blockchain, first of all, that you create is, number one, it's immutable. It's and it has to be maintained. It has to, have software upgrades. It has to have engineers develop it. but you could just solve this problem with APIs, and I'm sure they already have APIs. And he said, you know what? That's absolutely right. And that's the reason why we are not really successful. And then it was like only like 6 to 8 months later where they shut down the whole group because they realized that blockchain is really only the idea that you will have multiple centralized entities running a blockchain. It doesn't make any sense. You have to really get the value of the blockchain. You're putting it in a place where you have individuals, participants, companies that cannot trust each other in any way, shape, or form. Maintaining a blockchain to be able to, whatever that data relationship is that they want to have with each other, enable that through the blockchain. So money, voting,
right.
Those are the kind of things where.
So there are these specific use cases where blockchain technology is super useful and can be like paradigm shifting, but you don't need to throw blockchain at everything.
Exactly.
So Bitcoin, blockchain, not Bitcoin, like maybe, but really it's blockchain and Bitcoin and.
Right. At the end of the day, blockchain is a database. It's an evolved database technology, but there's no problem. You could have distributed databases that are replicating with each other, that are centralized, and they could accomplish the goal. They could be a lot cheaper and a lot more, self-sufficient and easy to maintain than, a big heavyweight blockchain.
Right.
The other thing about a blockchain, for it to really be successful, if you don't have individuals that are being paid every day to maintain it and, all the infrastructure that requires.
Yeah.
In the case of Bitcoin and other digital asset blockchains, you have economic incentives to.
And it's built right into the protocol.
It's built into the protocol,
Yeah.
and those economic incentives enable all the participants to get value out of it, regardless of what role they're playing. In Bitcoin, you could be a miner and get value out of it. You could be a investor and get value out of it. You could be a node operator. You could be a lightning node operator. There's all these different roles, and everyone is incentivized to participate. You could be malicious, but you can't attack the system. There's nothing that you can do to break it.
Right.
You are, you're playing your role and you're following the rules of the network.
Right.
And that's one of the key attributes of a blockchain that makes it successful, is that, it exists for the benefit of the participants.
So the blockchain, one of its defining characteristics, as we know, is that it's decentralized. That's pivotal. But why does it need to be decentralized? When the blockchain was invented and made to be decentralized, and that needed to happen for a specific reason, right? That's a solution to a problem. What problem does decentralization on a blockchain database actually solve? Why do we need that?
It's needed for distributed consensus.
And what does that mean?
It means that it solves what the blockchain really does is it solves something called the Byzantine generals problem. And
sounds old.
And it really comes down to computer networks. It's really old. It actually is not that old. It's not that old. It's just it's a story of and I don't remember it 100%, but it's a story created of the king of the Byzantine or the emperor of the Byzantine Empire needs to get a message out to his generals without the message getting intercepted, compromised, and all of the generals getting the message at the same time.
Okay.
And this was a computational problem that Satoshi Nakamoto solved through the blockchain.
And no one had ever solved it before him? He's
No,
the first?
he was the first person to solve the problem, and through the blockchain, and here we are. It's incredible. You don't actually need to be 100% decentralized to run a blockchain. Only Bitcoin is 100% decentralized. Ethereum runs a blockchain, but they have centralized entities. Mm-hmm. Those nodes operate on AWS. If something happens to Amazon, if AWS goes down, those nodes are going down.
The
miners. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there are some designs for blockchains that aren't fully decentralized. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, if you need a system that needs to be 100% fully decentralized, mm-hmm. there is no other ledger system, there's no other database system that can support that besides a blockchain.
So that means that you have to get the same message across to all the, let's call them nodes not a lack of a better word, it's the word. You need to get the same information to all of these nodes without them being intercepted or changed, and it has to happen at the same time. And the only way to do that is to have a decentralized system.
And believe me, I come from a technology background in fintech. I've worked with the biggest banks in the world. This problem that you're describing right now sounds so simple when you say it, but
really
it is
does.
the hardest. It is one of the hardest computational/networking problems that has ever existed. That was solved by the blockchain and Satoshi Nakamoto.
And so before we had this really brand new, innovative solution that Satoshi Nakamoto came up with, what were people doing to address that problem?
Nothing. There was nothing that existed before that.
And so what was the consequence
Well,
of that?
you could have distributed database, but if those databases are all controlled by a single entity, let's say a bank has a system and it has all of the databases that are replicating with one another within its own environment, then they can control malicious attacks.
So we're talking about limiting points of failure where information can be corrupted,
and developing a system that's impervious to attack. And that's one of the key attributes of a blockchain. It's impervious to attack because I can create a database, and as long as I'm securing that database with known entities, cool, no big deal. That's been happening for decades.
Right.
But the moment I create a database and I need that database to be impervious to assault from unknown attacks, not only like unknown attacks today, unknown attacks tomorrow. I don't even know what those attacks could be. Blockchain. And that's Satoshi Nakamoto's, contribution to the world.
So then let's go back to the previous point. Then why is the necessity of a blockchain technology actually kind of limited to specific use cases where you need that to happen? It sounds like this is a problem that has persisted in a lot of areas where maybe blockchain could be used in multiple ways.
Sure, absolutely. And there's projects designed to secure the food chain, supply chains, ports, transport. There's all sorts of projects, civics. There's all sorts of projects, tracking people. There's all sorts of ideas.
Wonderful.
It's kind of dystopian in some of them.
Love that for us.
There's all kinds of ideas about how to use blockchain technology and apply it to make the world a better place.
Where do you actually see that going? So how do you see blockchain technology, number one, having already changed the world? Obviously, we talk about Bitcoin here a lot, so we know about that. But where do you think this is going paradigm-wise for the world?
It's here to stay. Number one, we're only bound by our own imagination, just like any technology. If we think about the internet, right? We talked about this in, I think, last time we shot a video.
Yeah.
I did not, and I don't think anyone, let's ask, the listening audience, when we thought about the internet in 1997, did we think about all the incredible value that the internet would bring to our lives in 2020?
We had no freaking clue.
We didn't. There was a Cambrian explosion of ideas that turned into value for humanity. We've seen, literally societies transform because of the internet. Governments overthrown. The Arab Spring wouldn't happen without Twitter.
Right.
So to think what blockchain technologies and particularly Bitcoin can do for the world, it's going to do stuff. We know that, it's hard. Absolutely, it has.
And we're 13 years in.
Yeah, and we have a long way to go.
Yep.
And it's going to be incredibly exciting to see how entrepreneurs, innovators, technologists, little kids that are growing up that are starting to play with this technology and wrap their heads around it. What they're going to create and the value that's going to bring to humanity is just super, super exciting. That's part of the magic.
Well, it's funny because some people that I've spoken to, and maybe you too, have expressed concern that maybe the window of getting into Bitcoin or understanding blockchain is closing, but it sounds like just the opposite. It sounds like this is sort of in its infancy, even though it has this really strong history that we can look back on and analyze, but that this technology is in its infancy, like the internet, and that we don't actually know the full implication of what's going to happen here.
Yeah, it's funny because people ask me that all the time. Is it too late? And the third person that got into Bitcoin probably thought it was too late. The first two people were the only people that were like the first, right? Satoshi Nakamoto and a technologist named Hal Finney, who he sent the first Bitcoin transaction to. It's incredibly early. This technology is going to be with us for the rest of our lives. It's going to be with us for generations. It's never too late. It's just 3% adoption globally.
We're in it. We're in for this ride. Bought the ticket, take the ride.
It's early days.
Yeah.
It's early days.
Awesome. Well, Omar, we're going to wrap it up. Thank you so much.
That was really fun.
Yeah, that was awesome. I hope that if you enjoyed this, that you give us a like and leave us a comment and tell us what you thought about this video. Ask us literally any question you want. You can ask me if you want. You can ask Omar. I would suggest that.
Hit me with your best shot.
Hit him with your best shot, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel where we are always dropping awesome informative videos for no reason other than to educate you. And hit the notification bell so that you never miss one of our videos. That's gonna wrap it up for now.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Thank you.
And we're gonna see you guys in the next video. Goodbye.